What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome back to episode number 100. We made it, folks, of Town or Town. It's Park to Prem. As someone pointed out on yesterday's video, technically yesterday was episode 100 of the series, because of course the very first episode was me looking for a club, but we're going to ignore that. This is the 100th episode at Town or Town, and given the fact this has descended into a one club save, I would consider it episode 100. You can disagree if you want. Of course, last episode I asked for your questions down in the comments. Today we are going to be answering some of those, as well as playing 3 matches live today. So we've got Huddersfield, Northampton and Leicester. These are not the easiest of games. Northampton and Huddersfield I suspect will do well in. But of course Leicester, you might remember, were relegated down to League One a couple of years ago. Last year they came second in the league, and so far in the Premier League, not in the Premier League, in the Championship, they sit 4th. Of course, Leicester, more familiar with the Premier League, you would say. Anyway, you can see we've started the year very well, as was to somewhat be expected, and, well, it might not surprise you to see Shvetsov plastered all over the player stats. So let's just get straight into this, and, well, first and foremost, we've got to talk about the 6 games since you were last here. Some really good ones in here. Some not so good ones in here as well. So of course we started off the season against Walsall with a 4-0 win, and following on from that, an away trip to the Riverside. And this is not necessarily the easiest of games. Middlesbrough, they've been a decent team in this save game. Away from home is never really easy in the Championship, but we came through this one unscathed. 2 goals, the first through Shvetsov, the second by Dylan Turnbull. 2 really tidy finishes by the forwards. And, well, I suspect we're going to be seeing plenty more goals of them today and indeed throughout the rest of the season. The next game we had at home against Nottingham Forest didn't really go according to the script. You can see here we lost this game 3-1, but we were the better team for large spells. They got a goal through Coventry, and then as we pushed on to try and get a point or more from the game, we conceded a second. And, well, the prospect of an unbeaten season, it went out the window kind of early. The next game we had against Charlton, a crazy game. It finished 4-0. Oh, not 4-0, 4-4. Not 4-0. It couldn't have been further away from 4-0. You can see here, 4-4 is how it finished. Turnbull with 2, Shvetsov with 2. A crazy game. I would show you the highlights for it, but we would not be able to get them all in. It would probably take half an hour. It was a crazy match, but a point. And at the end of the day, it isn't what I was expecting going into it, but we'll walk away with it and be happy. The next game we had against Leeds United, Shvetsov just doing his thing again. He got the first goal in this game. A really good finish, although they fought back. Julian Gold with a goal just before half-time, and that kind of knocked the wind out of our sails. And, well, with time running out, we rolled the dice. We threw on a load of players in the final third, and one of those players who came on off the bench was Shuttleworth, who appeared at the back post to tuck it in. And with that goal, we got all 3 points at Ellen Road. A huge win. Shuttleworth, just one of those players who can just do it in the Championship and seems to struggle in the Premier League. So we're glad to have him. He's had a few injuries to start the year, but good to open up his account for the year. The next game we had against Stoke, EFL Cup, we got to the final of this competition last year. Not really a priority this year. Atchabar, though, did get his first ever goal for the club. Talked about the possibility of signing this guy last episode. I did end up signing him, a free transfer having been released from Bayern Munich. And interesting to note, his value is really high. And I assume it's high because his reputation is good from playing for Bayern Munich. But nevertheless, he's a very good player. Is a striker more naturally, although I feel like he could really do a job as an inverted winger for us at this level, certainly. And as far as free transfers go, I would call him a pretty good addition. I'm sure you guys can agree with that. Unfortunately, we did crash out 3-1 playing a fully rotated side. And, well, most recently, prior to the international break that we've just had, we took on Blackburn. They were 3rd in the league. They were going very strong. We were going a little bit stronger, though, in this game. Shvetsov from the penalty spot, shooting into the stand under construction, which is now officially done. Our stadium now holding 14,000. Shortly after that, going into the second half, Lazarus, the right back, opening up his account for the year, the Greek player. And whilst he's not naturally a right back, he's taken to it like a duck to water so far this year. And while late on, Ox, our other new fullback at left back, whipping in a ball of quality, and Shvetsov tucking it away into the bottom corner. So some really good performances in there. Obviously not ideal, dropping a few points here and there, but the good news is we are scoring a load and we are playing really well. In terms of the system, I obviously last year during our period in the Premier League, I switched up the system to try and help us be a little bit more counter-attacking, a little bit more direct. This year I've gone back to the system that got us promoted from the league last year when we last did it obviously a couple of years ago now technically, so we are going to be playing it out from the back, not booting it as forward, quite as quickly. I do feel like our overall quality at the back has got significantly better. Players like Maggi, 11 passing, sure, it's not absolutely superb. Similarly for Douglas, 14 passing to be fair, he's a pretty good defender. But just looking across the back line as a whole, I feel like we've got enough passing ability at this level at least to be able to play it out from the back, and that is something that I really want to do going forward. And with such a young back line, there's plenty of room and time to improve their passing across the board. In terms of general team performances to start the year, Shvetsov is the standout candidate. He's got 9 goals and 4 assists. Dylan Turnbull's chipped in with a few goals. In terms of little bits of transfer news, you'll notice here Maticevic has gone out on loan. Come deadline day, I sent him off to Northampton. He's been playing there as a centre mid for them. He's had a pretty good start to his time at the club. He got runner-up in goal of the month in the championship and has been continually playing in the Bosnian national team, which is absolutely superb to see. Obviously, the fact that he has gone out on loan may imply there was some new additions, and indeed there was. So following on from Matcha leaving the club, we have brought in Adrian Hyland from Sheffield United. Now, I will talk more about this shortly, but one of the questions I've been getting asked a lot is basically, do you ever worry about a player who maybe has something lacking from their game? So, for example, with Hyland, it might be his off the ball. And the simple answer is, not really, because with a player like Hyland, sure, he doesn't have the craziest off the ball in the world for a deep line playmaker, but what he has is absolutely insane passing, technique, work rate. Actually, when you compare him to Matcha, head-to-head, yes, Matcha probably has the edge, but considering we signed Hyman, who is a 20-year-old English prospect, for a third of the price that we sold Matcha for, I actually feel like it's some quite good business. So he joined us, and there was another new centre mid who joined us not long before the deadline day, and that was Andre. Now, he is not the best passer of the ball, let's get that out the way immediately, but similarly to Hyman, whilst he has that one gap in his game, I actually feel like on the whole he has just a boatload of potential. He's 19 years old, model citizen personality, which I absolutely love. Was previously, as you can see on loan at Udinese, playing in Serie A. He's been started his career at Corinthians. He is actually part Italian, as you will notice here, which obviously meant he could get a work permit. And I think he'll be a very good centre-mid option for us this year. And at 19 years old, with a great personality, I have high hopes for him, despite the gaps in his game in a few areas. Another signing that we made, and this might be the signing of the series. I know that's a very big claim to make, and some people are going to raise an eyebrow at that. We have signed this guy, Volta. That's probably not how you say his name. He's joining us at the start of January next year. 17 years old, Brazilian-Portuguese nationality. So that doesn't really make sense because Brazilian-Portuguese is the language. What I mean is he's Brazilian and he's Portuguese. So he didn't need a work permit. He looks absolutely phenomenal. I am tempted to play him as an inverted winger out on the right, despite the fact he's right-footed, but wow, what a crazy player to pick up. I guess the only downside is the lack of consistency, but he's 17, folks. He's 17, crazy potential. I'm very excited. He looks good, doesn't he? So anyway, that's a little bit about what's been going on since we're last here. We're now going to get into the first game, and I am going to start answering some questions. We'll see how many I get through. I will apologise in advance if I don't get through as many questions as I would like. Obviously, I'm going to prioritise somewhat what's happening on screen. And just as a further heads up, I am recording this video at 11 PM. So it's quite late for me because I wanted to give you guys the whole of the day that I uploaded the video to get questions in. So yeah, if I say the wrong thing, sometimes I do that anyway, but if I say right midfielder instead of right back or whatever, just go with it. I think you know what I mean. Yeah, give me the benefit of the doubt. It's late, I'm tired, I have just taken an energy drink to try and get me through this, and well, hopefully our players aren't going to be showing the same lag that perhaps I am. So anyway, the biggest question that got thumbs up the most was from Tamid Arson on yesterday's video, and it was, how long do you intend to keep this series going? Greetings from Norway. So first of all, hey, I think that's how they say hello in Norway. In fact, I know it is, as Shvetsov misses a chance. And the answer to that question is, what is the aim of this series? And that was another question that came up. It's just to win everything. I would love to win the Champions League, Premier League and the FA Cup all in one season. At the same time, even if that was to happen, Shvetsov scores. We'll take that. As I said, hopefully he'll get lots today. But yeah, with this series, the big aim is just to basically make Taulor into an absolute powerhouse. That's the dream, right? I want to win everything. I want to dominate all of world football. In reality, to actually achieve that, I think we could be here for another 10 years. It's taken, 12 years to get to this situation we're in. Our infrastructure still isn't that great, really, in terms of our training facilities and youth facilities. I think they're about to hit 3 stars, which, when you compare it to all the teams in probably League One, and the Championship is below average. So considering we were playing in the Premier League last year, it's a little bit crazy. So that's the end goal, although even if we do that, it might not necessarily end just there. Anyway, the next question that I got is from Paranoid Android, who asked, what are your biggest gripes with FM that you would fix if you were given the power? So if I was given the power bestowed upon me to do something with Football Manager, what would I do? And actually, I think the answer for this is I would love to see the online looked at more. I feel like there's loads of potential with Football Manager's online play. Shuttleworth scores. We'll take that. Highland with the assist as well, which is great to see. But yeah, I feel like the online with Football Manager could definitely be elevated. At the same time, not enough people play it now. It's that chicken and the egg scenario where not enough people play multiplayer Football Manager to see it revamped in any kind of crazy way, but they don't play it because it's not revamped. I don't know exactly what I would do in multiplayer Football Manager, but I just feel like there's loads of potential that's not really been explored. And in terms of biggest gripes of Football Manager, it's easy for me to sit here and say, make the match engine perfect. But the reality of me saying that is that the Football Manager match engine is something like 15 years of spaghetti code, so you can't just fix it, with a magic wand. Otherwise, I'm sure we'd have the most perfect match engine ever now. I would love to see the visuals of the match engine pushed further. Obviously, the big thing with Football Manager is most people play on their laptops, and a lot of people still play in 2D or on rubbish graphics, so you can't ever expect, the craziest graphics in the world. And additionally, the match engine is doing thousands of calculations at a time, so this idea that you could have FIFA-like graphics on a rubbish computer, actually playing the game, it's not very realistic. The people who say, why does Football Manager look bad, are also people playing on laptops that probably couldn't run FIFA on PC, for example, and FIFA on PC is doing a lot less processing power in terms of decisions and AI stuff compared to, say, Football Manager. So, another question that I got asked, and I guess I can answer it here. I'm not sure. I think a few people left this question is, what would I want for FM21? What I'd actually like to see change with Football Manager for FM21 is I'd love to see an overhaul to the commercial side of the game. I feel like it's not really changed a great deal in kind of the last 10 years. You consider how marketability of players plays a factor, the following of players, and all this stuff, really plays a role in game. Like you probably wouldn't want this, and I'm not saying this is what should be added, but for example, can you imagine if there was a staff role for social media manager? Now, the manager would never really deal with this, so it's a bit of a silly one, to suggest. But basically, I feel like there's way more that could be done with the marketability of players. Players, I know you have the ability for a player to have a conversation, or you can talk about a player to try and persuade them to join. Imagine if your team having a bigger following on the social media tab, maybe it could be tied in with reputation, would allow you to basically, push interest in players more. I don't know. I know for some people they hate the fact that social media plays a role in modern football, but that is kind of the reality of it, and the fact that it's not represented in great deal in Football Manager is a bit weird. It is one of those things where a real Football Manager doesn't really play that big or an influence in it. So at the same time, it could be the kind of thing that gets added in, but you can't really do a great deal about, other than, signing players of certain personalities and stuff. But I don't know. For me, that's an area of the game that's not been touched, the marketability, the commercial side of things, because modern football is made up of personalities, and I feel like a little bit of that gets lost in FM. So that's why I'd change about FM21. If there was a really big area of the game that I would like to see addressed, it'd be that. Turnbull took this away, make it 3-1, he's hit the woodwork. Is it going to go in? No, it stopped on the line perfectly. That's annoying, isn't it? By the way, it's 2-1. They did score. Bit busy answering questions. Did it go over the line? VAR. No, it didn't, everyone. Anyway, someone asked, Void Vector asked, in fact, what's the most disappointing player you've had in your save? Now, I assume you're asking about the Taulor save specifically. So disappointing. Alexis Sanchez has to be up there, right? Because I expected big things from him at League 2 level. At the same time, I don't know. It's one of those things where I didn't expect him to do a great deal. He was in his mid to late 30s. He was old, and I'm the kind of person who likes to make the most of younger players. But I don't know. I was thinking we'd get a little bit more out of him. Turnbull, can you score this? Is it a penalty? No, it's a free kick to them. Who else is a disappointment with the save game? I could say someone really random, like oh gosh, what was his name? This is awkward now. I had him named like a superhero, formerly of Liverpool. He was a youngster. Highland, by the way, great assist for Shvetsov's 11th of the season. Oh, this is going to bug me now. Voltman from Liverpool, signed at the same time as Leighton Stewart. I thought he was going to be really, really good for us, and he never really performed. I didn't give him that many opportunities, and I know that's a bit of a random one to pull out the hat, but I don't know, when you compare what he achieved to Leighton Stewart, two Liverpool striker kind of youngsters who joined us the same summer, their careers went in quite different directions. Anyway, there's a question I'm going to come back to because I think it's a really good one to answer in a second. So we'll focus on the game for now as Turnbull scores again. Only his 4th of the year. I say only just because Shvetsov's got 11 so far. Lazarus, by the way, with the assist. He has got a lot of assists from right back. It's interesting, actually. We've not had the craziest of quality in the full-back positions. And I do feel like between Lazarus and Ox, our 2 new additions, we've really upped our game in the full-back department. And, well, hopefully that's really going to, work a treat for us as this season goes on, as it appears to have done so far. We've not been superb defensively here. They've created a lot of chances. However, compared to our chances created, we are doing quite a lot. That said, we could be called into defensive action here. Davis, Ox, I mean, look at that. Reyes doesn't do that tackle. James Norris doesn't do that tackle. Not only has he won it, he's kept it. He's recycled the ball. By the way, for people worrying, I know the stadium was being expanded. The gazebo has survived the expansion. It's like a cult hero of the save game, the gazebo. How many Premier League teams do you know that just have a gazebo in there next to their main stand? Exactly. None. None as good as Towler. Right, Birch bringing it forward. Can Douglas do his thing? He's missed a big chunk of the start of the year through injury. No, is the answer. He can't stop the ball getting in. Thomas Gillespie gets his 1st of the year. You know what? We can probably make some subs here. I'm going to take off Molineux, and I'm actually going to bring in Adrian Rodriguez, the young Argentine. Brought him in, trying to work him as a centre mid. It's not really worked out. I'm also going to take off Alvarez for Cece. It was interesting, actually. There was a comment, and I can probably find this. It was from Thomas LeBlond, who said, "I'm not ready to forgive Cece yet." Now, I know for some people, maybe you've jumped to this point. Maybe you started watching when we were in the Premier League or the Championship. Cece, who we signed over the summer from Newcastle, we signed for 15 million, but we got 50% of that back because we sold him to them originally. If you don't know, in the League One playoff semi-final against Shrewsbury, we were 3-1 up after the first leg. He got sent off at 0-0 in the second leg, and then we lost the game 3-0 and missed out on the playoff final because of it. So he's got a bit of a redemption arc to fulfill, as Shvetsov misses an opportunity for the hat-trick. But I'm ready to forgive him, and I'm hoping you guys are too. I mean, speaking of the devil, here he is. I feel like for the most part, he's actually going to be kind of a sub-player for us, coming on off the bench. Anyway, Rodriguez fresh off the bench. Just Shvetsov heads it over. That's another good opportunity going our way. I will say, since we've reverted back to our old, playing it out of the defence 4-4-2, the one that got us promoted originally, I do feel like we've looked a lot better going forward, which is great to see. I feel like it just gets a little more out of our players. Shvetsov threaded through. What can he do here? Turnbull, back post, heads it in. 5th of the season for him. Is that his hat-trick? No, that's his brace. Of course, Shuttleworth got a goal. Shvetsov with 2. Turnbull with 2. I am interested to see how many goals Shvetsov can get this year. That's a question for all of you in the comments, actually. I want predictions. So, Shvetsov, how many goals will he get in the Championship this year? I think so far he's got 11 from 7 or 8 games. Could he hit 40? Could he hit 50? That feels a little unrealistic to expect, but he was top goal scorer in the Premier League last year, so, well, he's taken a small step down, some would argue. But, well, we didn't need a hat-trick from him there, did we? 5-2 that finishes. What a performance that is. I know Huddersfield, they're not the biggest team in the world, at least in our save game. I mean, they're a team of adequate stature, I suppose. But 5-2 it finishes. Shvetsov gets man of the match. I think that's his 7th man of the match award so far this year. A load of our players out on loan doing their thing. Shvetsov, 2 goals and an assist. I mean, I just have to praise him. He's got 11 goals in 7 and 5 assists. So he's made 16 goal contributions in 7 matches. He's absolutely nuts, to be clear, and the fact he's consistent means he's always going to be performing. Also, if we just look at general here, he's already listed as a club legend. which is crazy compared to the likes of Kumwenda and Dazelle, who really had to work for a few years. This is only his third full season at the club. Before this year, he'd only had one season in the Championship and one in the Premier League, of course. Anyway, you might notice something here, and this is actually a little tip I picked up from Reddit. So our Football Manager games, you deserve some credit here. If you're like me, you might look at a player, say you're looking at Volta here, and you go to Scout, and then you want to assign a Scout, right? And you don't know which Scout to pick, because it doesn't actually list these numbers that you can see here. So what this user on Reddit suggested, and I have no idea if they were the original person to come up with this, but if you go to your Scouts, pick a Scout, say for example, I don't know, Martin Christie here. So he has 16 judging player ability and 17 judging player potential. So what you can do is you can set a nickname for the player, and then on the end of their name add their judging player current ability and potential ability. So 16 and 17 in his name. And that means that when you go to scout a player, I'm now just going to try and find a really random arbitrary player. So I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. But essentially, you can see a list of all your scouts, and it also has their ability to judge player potential and such next to their name. So, for example, I know immediately that Chris Gummery is our best scout. 18 judging player ability, 19 judging player potential. Yeah, useful tip, I think. When I saw that, I was like, my word, I'm stealing that. That is good. So from this point onwards, if you ever see staff members with random numbers, you now know what the random numbers mean. They're my scouts, and it's how good they are at judging players. Anyway, the question that I wanted to answer, but I was going to wait until we were done with our game, is from Mika Suansaraya. I think you're Finnish, maybe. Suansaraya. I don't know. And I hope I've done that justice. It probably sounded like I was, I don't know, struggling. Either way, we've broken our record attendance there. But yeah, Mika's question was, why do you keep plucking square parts into round holes? You never seem to go for a player's natural role as where you want to play them. And it hurts his brain. So I apologise for hurting your brain. And the reason is, well, simple. The players who I play out of position or try and teach a new position are players who are young and I think are better suited to those roles. So a good example would be Lazarus here. Now, I could probably play Lazarus as a centre mid where he's natural, right? And I could play him as a box-to-box midfielder, but I feel like his finishing isn't that great, his long shots aren't that great, passing could be better. You know, he's got really good work rate and teamwork, which is nice, but he has a lot more going about him defensively than, say, going forward, and his technicals are a little bit lacking. So, for example, as a fullback, whilst he still lacks, I guess, in crossing and dribbling, it makes a lot more use of some of his better strengths. You know, it plays into his natural athleticism. He's got the work rate to get up and down the pitch. Really good, you know, technical fullbacks are hard to come by. And on top of that, he's got decent positioning and tackling at the age of 19. So, to me, he's better suited to play right back. And because of his age, I'm more willing to retrain his position. A similar story would be with, of course, Maticevic, who I have trained to play centre mid. And you might wonder, Jack, why would you train to play this guy at centre mid? You know, he's got good jumping reach, he's got good balance. You know, where else could you play him? And of course, he's naturally a right winger, but he's got 9 crossing and 12 dribbling, as well as just poor physicals in terms of acceleration and agility. There's not really a wide role that is going to make use of these physicals. His physicals just aren't very serviceable as a winger, but as a slightly less mobile midfielder, I think I can make more use out of him. Yes, he's lacking a little bit in long shots and a little bit in tackling, but he's 18 years old, you know? He's still very, very young. Granted, he is about to be 19. And so, to me, I think he can be a better centre mid, and I know some people will disagree with that, but then what I will draw your attention to is if we just look at how he's performed out on loan so far this year. This year, he has had his best performances out on loan at Northampton playing as a centre mid. You know, that has been where he's had his best impact on the game. He's got 4 goals and 1 player of the match. So he's good going forward, don't get me wrong. But as far as centre mids go, I think he'll do a better job there in the long run. And at least using very small sample sizes, the game kind of reflects that. And so I know for a lot of people, they'll feel like his flair is being wasted because he's not playing out wide. But at the same time, you know, flair isn't the be-all or end-all of a player. A lot of people will look at my players and go... I've noticed, actually, when I tweet out a player, for example, Douglas, and I go, I'm going to train Douglas as a centre-back, the first thing that people say on Twitter is, he's not very good in the air. He's got bad heading and bad jumping, because at 13 jumping and 11 heading isn't, you know, world class. Of course, the first rebuke to that would be he's just turned 19. You know, he's still a very, very young player. And the second thing I would say is, if you've got a player who's got really good bravery and good decision making, they're going to do stuff. And if they've got good positioning as well, they're going to be able to make up for it. Now, of course, you know, he doesn't have the craziest pace in the world, but say he was a player who had really bad positioning but was quick, he can make up for that one gap in his game by the fact that he's got lots of agility. I guess in this case, I would argue the fact that he's got, you know, reasonable anticipation, but really good concentration and positioning means that he's going to make up for things. He's not going to get caught out of position and need to sprint to mark his man more often than not. You know, he's going to put in a good tackle and he's going to make good decisions as to when to put in a tackle. And basically, people need to realise you can afford to have a player who has a gap in their game if their other elements of their game make up for it. So, for example, with a player like Highland, as a deep line playmaker, his off the ball isn't particularly good. Neither is his anticipation. But you know what? He's got good decisions and good composure. So whilst he might not be able to find as much space off the ball, because he's got good composure, when he's under pressure on the ball and because he's got good first touch, he's going to be able to take a touch and get the ball out of feet quickly without his poor movement letting him down so much. If that makes sense. I know that isn't really answering the question of why do I plug players, you know, who don't fit certain roles. So I guess the example here would be someone like Alvarez. Why would I not play him as an advanced playmaker on attack? And the answer is he's got rubbish passing. 11 passing for a playmaker isn't a playmaker in my eyes. But you know what? He's got really, really good physicals on the whole. Really good physicals. So for me, I feel like I will train him to play box-to-box midfielder. He's only just turned, you know, 20. Actually, that's a lie. He's closer to 21, but he's still very young. And as far as a box-to-box midfielder goes, yes, his aggression and positioning and tackling aren't the best, so he's not going to be an amazing defensive box-to-box midfielder. But I'll tell you what, the rest of his game is really, really good. He's got great decisions, he's got good work rate, his technique is great, first touch and dribbling, finishing, so when he gets into the final third, he's going to be able to do his thing. And he's also got pretty decent stamina and just good acceleration to get up and down the pitch. And so, whilst a really important thing to remember is that this circle here that you see on the right isn't how good the player is a role in terms of his attributes. That is his familiarity with the role. So if he's not played as a box-to-box midfielder, he's not going to be so good for it. But actually, I would argue that he is a much better box-to-box midfielder than, say, he would be a deep line playmaker, because as far as deep line playmakers go, he's got rubbish passing, rubbish teamwork, and rubbish composure. There's lots of stuff here that he's lacking that are important for the role. For example, whilst I talked about with a sense about the fact that I don't think height's the be-all or end-all, I feel like for a playmaker, passing isn't really something you can get away not having. Whereas for a box-to-box midfielder, you know, you've got so many elements to your game there. But actually, on the whole, he has a lot fewer glaring weaknesses. Yes, he's not quite as good defensively, but it makes use of his physicals and his mentals and his well-rounded technicals. And actually, he's a very, very well-rounded player when he's in possession of the ball, which we look to do with our system. So that's why I play players out of, you know, roles. And obviously, he will gain familiarity in this role. You know, he will learn this role quite quickly. Similarly to Douglas and Lazarus. They are good players for their roles. Yes, they're not flawless, but they're young players who will make amends. And I'm playing the long game with these players because I think they can be world-class in their respective roles that they're better suited to longer term. Anyway, I feel like I had a bit of a circular conversation there that could have been about a minute or two shorter. But I hope that answers the question a little bit. Look at what players could be and understand that just because a player's missing something in their game, it isn't the be-all or end-all. There's definitely exceptions to that. For example, a playmaker I would never play with low passing. A centre-back I would struggle to ever play if they had both low tackling and decisions and marking. But there's exceptions to that. Especially when you're a team like Taulor, I can't go out and sign a player who can do absolutely everything. I'm not going to find a player who, as a playmaker, has 14s in everything. You know, that's not realistic. But what I can find is a player like Highland, who, whilst he doesn't have 14 in everything he needs to have, he has some really, really high attributes in some stuff that is very, very important to his role. And the stuff that he is lacking, I think those other high attributes outweigh. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. I hope that helps. So the reason I insist on players playing out their role is because I think they can suit those roles better, and there aren't players that exist that I can afford or that I can sign or that are comparable in price, for example, to a player like Alvarez, who we signed for £500,000, who can do the role as well as he can. Anyway, you can see here, we've got a load of scouting going on, a few youngsters that my staff picked up. One of the players I'm looking at is Boudra here. He looks like a nutty goalkeeper. He's 19 years old. He's already capped for Morocco. They want about £20 million for him, which is a little high. Obviously, when you look at his attributes, there are a few little gaps in his game, but his aerial ability and his shot stopping are really solid, and he's got great potential, and he's consistent. How much would you pay for this guy? Let me know in the comments. I feel like 20 million's a little much for my liking, but he could be solid. Another player I've been looking at is Belfort. I actually almost signed this guy. I posted a screenshot of him on the Discord server, which if you don't know, I have a Discord server. It's linked down in the video description. There's a Park to Prem spoilers channel in there. If you've got questions about the save game, little snippets that I don't necessarily cover in videos going there as well. For example, should I sign this guy or not? He has a release clause of £14 million, which in the end I decided not to trigger. I feel like it's the kind of player where I'll keep an eye on him and see how his development goes. But at 17 years old, he looks pretty good. 14 million is perhaps a little much. However, it is worth noting that we've got a transfer budget of £45 million and £115 million in the overall balance. Of course, the fire sale that happened over the summer where we made a profit of £60 million has kind of helped with that alongside the parachute money. But yeah, I am thinking about how I can improve things, but I am now beginning to lean on the side of saving this money until we're hopefully pushing back towards the Premier League and I can just go and sign one or two really, really, high quality players. Anyway, the next question we have is from Alex B, who asked, would you ever do an FA coaching level 1 course, even just as a great experience to add to the CV? Great question, really good question. So, to answer this one, I don't think it would add a great deal to my CV, given what my day job is now. If you don't know, I work as a cinematic artist for a game studio, and I have done that job now for 5 and a bit years. In terms of would I ever do it, it's actually something that I thought about, and if one day, it's a big if, and I might talk about this a little more later, but if one day YouTube streaming content creation could be my primary source of income, I would love to do a little video vlogging series of me doing my coaching badges. I think it'd be really interesting to see my experience going through it as someone who's kind of, I played football at youth level. I actually coached a junior team with a friend for a year after I got a really bad injury and couldn't play the following season. And so I have a bit of experience just helping out with a junior football team. But in terms of doing coaching badges, I think it'd be a really cool thing to do as like a vlog-esque thing. Taking you through the steps, what it involves. So yes, I have considered it. I would love to do it, but it just doesn't really fit in with my day job and everything else I have going on right now. Obviously, where the world is right now is slightly problematic too, but in terms of I still work a day job, I do YouTube, I'm playing Football Manager 2 or 3 hours a day most days in order to get videos done for you guys, alongside working 9 hours a day. So it's always going to be a little bit tricky to fit in something like coaching badges in between. Anyway, you can see here, Anangi and Gok have been on loan at MK Dons. These are two players who are way, way better than Championship level, than League One level where they're playing at. But I'm excited by just seeing what they can do here. Anangi looks like he could be a top quality centre back. I am actually thinking that in January I may recall him, either loan him out to a Championship team or maybe even try and fit him in the first team somehow. Although that might be a struggle. Omar Gok, on the other hand, good player, shows a lot of potential, but I'm not overly sold on his ability to ever break into the first team. But you know what? Right now he's having a good little loan spell at MK Dons, 3 goals and 4 assists in League One. Yeah, he maybe one for the future. He's not quite improved as much as I would like. But anyway, I hope that answers your question, Alex B. I have thought about it. I think it'd be something cool to do, and I actually think I'd enjoy it a lot. But it's not really viable right now. And if I was to do it, I think it would make for really good video content. Anyway, Stefan has asked, will Smoljo ever return? As you may remember, I commented on the fact a few episodes ago that the last thing that I wanted to achieve with this save game, and it would happen when I sold Smoljo, was I'd sign him back at some point. I will let you know now that I have him been scouted. I think just about every game we get regular updates on him. I think we're going to struggle to get him in the immediate future. He's on £82,000 a week. He is considered one of Watford's good players, although his average ratings haven't been particularly great for them. And his current value is £13 million. He's got a 5-year contract as well, so he's recently signed a new deal, and he is playing as their first choice keeper. So yes, Smoljo will return. I'm determined to make it happen. You may have to give me 10 years to make it happen, but I promise you it will happen. This has reminded me of the fact that I have recently brought in a new staff member, and this gives me a great opportunity to put in a clickbait title. So if you've seen the title for this video, this explains why I've signed Ronaldo as the title of the video. Cristiano Ronaldo has joined us as a coach. Yes, 45 years old. he actually looks like a very, very good coach. You can see his coaching history here. He was manager of Hereford for a year, and then they sacked him, and he hasn't had a job for 2 years, and now he's come to be our coach. He started off as Leicester's under-18s coach way back when, and yeah, he's actually quite a good coach. Clearly, his managerial career didn't really work out at Hereford. You can see here he was sacked as manager, but he's joining us now as a coach. And so yes, Cristiano Ronaldo, welcome to Towler Town. Can someone make a highlight and skills montage of him just stood on the sideline for Hereford as the welcome video? I would love to see that. That's not something that's possible because it's not happened in real life, but I don't know, deep fakes are getting advanced. Maybe someone can Photoshop Cristiano Ronaldo on the sideline for a video. Anyway, he looks quite good. Good coach, not going to be a manager, I hope, because otherwise he could be replacing me. But yes, Towler Town have signed Cristiano Ronaldo, and I get to make a clickbait title, and if you've been baited in by it and waited till this point, I'm not actually sorry. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to bring in Rodriguez for this game. He's a player who's shown some really good signs of development. He's going to be a late bloomer if he is really going to bloom, but he's an extremely technically gifted Argentine, and we're going to play him out on the right-hand side, cutting in on his left foot. He actually punched in a goal in the run of games that we've just had prior to this episode that got disallowed for handball. Not something you see every day in Football Manager. Obviously, with him being Argentine, it was hard not to draw comparisons to Maradona. At the same time, I kind of respect the attempt to punch the ball in, knowing that VAR is in effect. Wait, no, VAR isn't in effect in the Championship, so keep trying, Rodriguez. Keep trying it until we get promoted, then maybe don't try and punch it in. Anyway, away from home against Northampton, they've been a yo-yo team between the Championship and League One, so this should be straightforward. So with that in mind, let's answer some more questions, shall we? As Shvetsov scores, I mean, there you go, and Alvarez with the assist. So someone asked, what are your goals of the series? We've already answered that. To win everything and make a Towler dynasty. Someone asked Victim2077, what game got you into the Football Manager genre? So I did play a little bit of Championship Manager 0102. I then played LMA Manager on a PlayStation 1 for a year. And then with Championship Manager 04 coming out, I made the switch back to playing on PC. And enjoyed it a lot. And as they say, the rest is history. I'm trying to remember how I think I got the game because my mum or my mum's friend had bought the game for her son who already had it. Somehow I ended up getting a copy of Football Manager for free, or Championship Manager as it was back then. I think it was the first year 3D was added, so I think it was 2004. And yeah, I've been playing it every year ever since for the last 16 years. So it's a bit of a curse, really. But no, I know a load of people come from CM99 or CM0102. I was 7 or 8 years old. When I think about it, I was only 11 or 10 years old when CM04 came out. So I probably had no clue what I was doing, in truth. But I thought I was playing it correctly. And I think I did okay. I think I worked out that regens were a thing, and I just used to wait for the Ryan Giggs regen or something. It was a long time ago. Anyway, the next question we have is Phantom Dust asking, am I still planning on doing Swansea Live after Park to Prem has finished? Good question. I am weighing it up, but I'm a little bit concerned at this point, given the fact this is our second season in the Championship, that then doing a live series following on from this in the Championship probably isn't going to be that exciting for you guys. I do feel like it could be a really interesting save, but the more I've just kind of thought about it, I'm not overly convinced. I feel like Park to Prem could realistically last for another 3 months. It could easily take us into July, maybe beyond. In terms of beyond then, I don't really know what to do, which is a weird thing to say, but I feel like it's not a problem that I need to worry about right now. One idea I have toyed with is the idea that if we build Towler up really, really big, then to do a kind of continuation of it called Taking Down the Law or Taking on the Law, where we would, try and find an interesting club to manage, maybe someone who's dropped down a few leagues from where they are in real life, and then try and kind of overthrow our kind of built-up team at Towler that's hopefully dominating world football. The one issue with that is that, generally speaking, what happens is the AI just ruins teams that you manage really, really well, especially if you're overperforming slightly. And so we could end up managing a team in, say, League One or the Championship, and by the time we get to the Premier League, Towler are like a bottom half team. Also, if it's going to be 20 years in the future, the save game is mostly going to be full of fake players, and it's a bit difficult, I feel like, at that point to build a connection with players that can be established over a longer period of time, like it has been here at Towler. So, yeah, I don't really know what to do after this. We'll see. I think it's going to be a tough act to follow. But I have got some ideas. I've already talked about it. For next year, I'm thinking Pentagon Challenge for FM21, which, if you don't know, is basically a challenge in Football Manager where you try and win the 5 Champions Leagues of the 5 different continents. So the African Champions League, Asian, North American, South American and European Champions League, but starting out as unemployed and with Sunday League rep. We've just got very lucky here because Northampton just had a goal disallowed for offside and it's only 1-0. I'm going to take off Turnbull for Ryan Achabar. For some reason with Achabar here, I keep wanting to just call him Rayman. I used to love the PlayStation 1 Rayman game, and Ryan is kind of close. Is that an acceptable nickname? It's a little bit of a stretch. And answers on a postcard, I suppose. I'm also going to make a change here. I'm going to bring in Andre, the Brazilian centre mid with 9 passing. And we're going to see what he can do. It's his live com debut. He's only got 20 minutes. Maybe he can just help us see out this game. But, yeah, I don't know what's next, is the answer immediately. Tom Finds has asked, best tip for someone just getting into Football Manager. Don't be afraid to fail, would be my answer. Don't be afraid to be sacked. Don't be afraid if things go wrong. I usually recommend when someone's just starting out, try and pick a team that you're familiar with that's quite a big club. Not necessarily the biggest challenge in the world. You know, figure things out. If it goes wrong and you get sacked, start a save game with the exact same team and do a few things a little bit differently and try and learn from those mistakes. But I think the important thing is, you know, learn from your mistakes, but also don't be afraid to just neglect part of the games. You know, you have the staff responsibilities where if training feels overwhelming or, you know, even tactics feel overwhelming, just set it for your staff to do that. You know, play the game at your own pace. There is so much to Football Manager. People who play the game a lot and have done for years kind of take for granted how imposing the game is now. I'm kind of lucky that I've played it for kind of the last 15 or 16 years. So to me, everything's been kind of slowly added and slowly changed. And so when I started playing it, it wasn't this big monster that it is now. So yeah, that would be my kind of advice to anyone starting out. I hope that's helpful. You know, don't be afraid about screwing it up and doing stuff wrong and reloading saves, dare I say it. Obviously, when you get into it more, I would advise against it. But if you really want to, try and understand the game more, it's best just to experiment and learn by failing, in my opinion. Anyway, let's get to the next question. It's from Marcus Hitch. How am I getting such good youth players in the save? This is a question that comes up a lot, and I did a video, I want to say for FM15, of how I find regens. It's not really changed since then, but obviously for players like Shvetsov, who started out as free agents, for Kosic as well, Mr. Dessa and Cece, they all started out as players who generated as free agents, but the way I found them is looking through national team youth teams, and that is still the way in which I recommend people find players if they want to do so quickly. You can comb through all the new youth intake with a fine-tooth comb trying to hunt out players, but that takes a very long time. If you want a really quick and efficient way to look for players, go through national teams, go through national under-21 teams, and scout the players who stand out. As you will note, you may have noticed, we've got a load of players who are going to be joining us, and lots of them have been found through this way. So, for example, Soretta here, who's agreed to join us, is a Brazilian centre-back. We found him playing for the Brazil under-20s team. I thought he looked pretty good. You can see him here, a pretty well-rounded player on the whole. He's only 17. He's going to join us next summer. We signed him for 170k. That was a release clause in his contract. Sasso Markowski is a great example of this. He is 17 years old. He only turned 17 in May, so a few months ago. He was capped for Macedonia, aged 16. If someone's capped for the national team at 16 years old, even if it's a smaller nation, it's probably worth scouting them. They're probably pretty good. You can take a look at him here and be the judge, but for a player who's only 17... I think he looks pretty excellent. And we signed him, drumroll please, for £17,000. So I've struggled to see a world in which we're not able to make a profit off him. Of course, there's not many players that exist as good as this guy at the price he's at. You really do have to hunt them out. I must stress that. Similarly with McCassie here, again, 18 years old, playing for the South Africa national team. It's usually a pretty good way to find players if they're super young playing for the national team. You can see he's naturally a centre-back. I don't really like his heading being only 7. That's going to be difficult to overcome. However, I am kind of weighing up the possibility of training him to play as a wing-back, which again, this is a great example of me looking at a player and going, what could they play better? And actually, as a wing-back, very few gaps in his game for his age. 9 technique, 10 first touch, 10 crossing, all should be able to be improved. He's only 18. Of course, worth mentioning, you can afford to have a few of these gaps, especially with a role like wing-back when it requires so much of a player. They've got to be so complete. I think he's got way more potential as a wing-back because he's got good dribbling than, say, playing as a centre-back where stuff like his dribbling, his reasonable passing and technique, his all-round really good physicals, and also great work rate and teamwork. They're never really going to be used as a centre-back to the same extent they would be. Of course, another option would be to play him as kind of a ball-winning midfielder, which again he could do quite well, but that doesn't really fit into my system. But it's another thing I could definitely look at, playing around with. I guess with his low flair, maybe that's a better role for him. But I think he's another good example of a player. National teams is a really quick and easy way to find stuff. If you would like to see me do an updated video on how I find youth players, more than happy to do it. The game hasn't changed a great deal in that regard in the last 4 years. So if you search WorkTheSpace, how to find regens, you can probably find an old video, and it would probably be me just regurgitating the content of that video in any video, kind of addressing this in detail. But just look at national teams. That would be my bottom line. And if you've got time, really comb through some of the lower league teams in different countries. Look at their key players. If you're early on in a save game and you're looking in, say, Serie B in Italy, 3 or 4 years in, and a club's key player is a regen, they're probably quite good at that point, and it almost becomes harder to find players like that the further you are in a save game, as there's more and more regens, and you get to a point where, like we are here, where 11 or 12 years in, there are 26-year-old regens who are the key players, and suddenly they're not kind of those young prospects that you once saw. Anyway, Robbie Mitchell has asked, have I ever managed a team in Scotland before, and would I ever consider doing a Scottish club series on the channel? So I have managed in Scotland before. I actually managed Gretna. That's a throwback. Many, many years ago now, before YouTube, back when they were in, I think, the Scottish 3rd Division. I want to say that might be wrong. I think it was the 3rd Division. It was before they went on their rise through the leagues. So I have managed in Scotland. Have I considered doing it for YouTube? I have. I think the one thing that people don't, it's hard for people to, maybe it's not, I was going to say it's hard for people to understand, but I don't think it is really. A big challenge with YouTube is picking a save that lots of people are going to watch. And I know someone's going to go, play the save games that you enjoy. That's what people want to watch. And I agree with that to an extent, but when you're playing through a save game and uploading it to YouTube, the more people who are watching, the more that you tend to enjoy it, because there's more people on the adventure, you get way more engagement. One of the things I've really enjoyed about this save game has been that so many of you guys have really bought into it. I get tweets about it. The amount of tweets and DMs on Discord and just comments on the YouTube comment section I get is absurd. We're getting something like 150 comments on the channel a day in the comments, which, for some channels isn't that huge a amount, but for me, that's crazy. It's got to a point now where, for the first time ever, I genuinely, I can't get through all the messages. I can't reply to everyone, and I really wish I could. But it's just kind of hit a level in the last few months where it's just not possible for me anymore. So if I don't ever reply to a comment or a DM that you sent, or a tweet or a message, I'm really sorry. There's only one of me. It's difficult. I just don't have the time in the day to do it. But I've gone on a really big tangent here. So let me go back for a second. So I have thought about managing in Scotland, but the issue is that lots of people just like watching one of two things. They like watching lower league saves in England, from my own experience, or they like, watching Pentagon challenges or really difficult challenges that involve going to countries you'd never ever normally consider managing. And I know that sucks, and I'm sure that some people will label it and go, you're just saying that because you're an Englishman who's not interested in managing in Scotland. I actually think Scotland's a really interesting country to manage in, especially, trying to take down the likes of Celtic and Rangers and, Aberdeen and Hearts. But a lot of people who watch these videos probably wouldn't watch that. I have poured my heart and soul into videos that, unfortunately, people don't find them as interesting. And I think Scotland and a lot of other countries, I get told, managing Portugal, managing Serbia, all these different countries, and people just wouldn't watch those videos. It's sad, but it's kind of the reality of it. You've seen something like RB Barner I did earlier on in the year, made a custom team, put loads of effort into it. It got about 9,000 views a video, which is almost half what this series gets, many more months after release. It's kind of unusual for me to start a save in January that is continuing to go from strength to strength. And whilst I'm not naive to the fact that everything that's going on in the world plays a role in that, I do feel like a lot of it comes down to just the fact that you guys are really enjoying this save game and kind of challenge that it presents. So, yeah, I have thought about managing Scotland, but I don't think it would ever happen. In terms of, plans for next year, as I said, Pentagon Challenge is kind of top of my list right now. I never want to lock it in and be final. Another thing that I have toyed with the idea of, and I don't know how well it would be received because it's kind of putting a twist on things, but there was a database for Football Manager about 5, maybe 6 years ago where someone took the area that I'm from, actually originally in England, Lincolnshire, and made it into its own nation in Football Manager. It had its own national kind of competition. The team still played in the English football leagues, but for example, it was Lincolnshire and Humberside, Humberside and kind of a bit of South Yorkshire. So for example, you had Hull, Lincoln City. I got Hill from Lincoln and Hull merged together, but basically all the cities from a certain area of England that were basically grouped together, had their own little tournament outside of the English Football League as well as competing in that. But then they also had a custom nationality. And one thing I have thought about is if I was going to do a save game like this again, this lower league to the top save, and I'm not saying that it would be next year, but potentially doing it whereby we take a section of England, or maybe something like Jersey, the island of Jersey or the Isle of Man, and basically make it into its own national team. So whilst we're also, while we're doing a lower league England save, it's also a bit like the old Gibraltar save. A lot of people ask me, what's my favourite save that I've ever done on YouTube? And the answer I often give is Gibraltar Apex. Now, if you don't know, you might struggle to find this series now because the game Apex Legends has a character called Gibraltar in it. So thanks EA for that. But I did a series where we managed a team made in Gibraltar, and it has almost 200 episodes, that series. Some people have asked how many episodes I think this series will have. I think it could beat the Gibraltar Apex record, which I think is 198. I want to say that might not quite be right. It didn't quite make it to 200. That's all I can remember. But a lot of people have asked, about stuff like that. And I wonder if doing this kind of save game, a lower league to the top save in England, but with the twist of we're also in a really small national team at the same time, if that could kind of be interesting. I don't know. I'm kind of going on a ramble here, but I would love to know if that sounds something you'd be interested in. The issue is when you pose a lot of questions in the comment section, everyone goes, yeah, that sounds great, I'll do it, and then you actually do it and no one watches. That's one thing to learn from the internet. I can't stress that enough. There is I don't want to say a vocal minority, but often the loudest voice isn't actually the consensus when it comes to the internet. And I think that's not only true of YouTube comment sections, but other facets of the internet as well. Anyway, I realise with a lot of this stuff, I'm just going off on tangents. I hope it's interesting. I'm doubting myself now. I feel like episode 100 should be something really special. But at the same time, it's kind of interesting just answering some of the frequently asked questions and just kind of getting some of my thoughts that are in my head that I can't really tweet about eloquently in a short kind of thing, and they don't really fit into any other video. Just out here in this kind of longer one, which I think maybe is interesting. The fact I'm doubting myself is concerning as less to take the lead in what is the must-win game of this episode. Right, let's move on, shall we? So Phantom of the Opera has asked, most iconic player in a series you did on this channel ever. Can I give 3 answers here? So Shvetsov is an honourable mention. Shvetsov, I think, could turn into another one of the icons of the channel. In terms of the icons on the channel, Matthew Lewis of the Lewis FC lower league save. I feel like anyone who's watched that series, that would be an absolute no-brainer. So there it is, Matthew Lewis. He scored. We lost the first leg against Barcelona at the Nou Camp 4-1, managing Lewis FC in the Premier League. In the second leg, he scored a hat-trick and we beat them 3-0 at home to knock them out on away goals. So that was a pretty good turnaround. So he is an obvious player there. And then the other 2 players, I would actually put in a Joe Bouchard and Paul Smith, who were Canadian and Australian, and they both played for Gibraltar Apex in this Gibraltar save that I already mentioned that was almost 200 episodes long. And with that series, they were players who came to the club aged 18 or 19, played for about 18 to 20 years at the club, because it was so long. They played out a full career at one team because the save game went on forever, because funnily enough, it takes a while to turn the small island, well, not island, but small, what is that? Is it peninsula? I don't know what the word is for, because it is technically adjoined to Spain. Either way, terminology. I didn't do well at geography at school. But it was really cool to see, that nation develop. And those two players kind of came all the way, and then they ended up being coaches by the end of the save game at the club, which was really cool. So yeah, Joe Bouchard, Paul Smith, Matthew Lewis. Matthew Lewis being the number one. I feel like you'd struggle to top him. Anyway, we did score in this game, so that's good. It's 1-1. The recovery mission's on, although Abe is breaking away. Douglas, what can you do? Douglas, what can you do? I mean, there you go. Doesn't need to jump when he can slide tackle like that. Rodriguez, where are you going, my friend? Okay, next question that we're going to ask. Patrick Giblin has asked, what's happened to Brandon? My heart needs to know they're safe. So I'm going to go out of the game for a second because we have just conceded. Let's just rage quit. People asking, what's happened to Brandon? So I have unloaded the league that Brandon are in. So we actually go to Brandon. I can't see what's happened officially because it's just simmed in the background, although apparently they did finish second in the league and get promoted. But I do play them in a friendly every single year. I think there's like a screen I can go to that shows past meetings. I don't actually know where it lives though. It's one of those weird screens that you never need to go to in Football Manager. But we play them every year in a pre-season friendly. So this year we beat them 15-0. The year before that we beat them 12-0. The year before that we beat them 14-0. So we beat them every year, but we play them every year at home just as a little tribute, a little memory to Brandon. So that's what's happening with Brandon. I hope that, can fill you all with joy. Right, let's continue going through these questions. There's a few that I've already answered, so if I've skipped over yours, I do apologise. Loads of people asking what the ultimate goal with this series is. To win everything, folks. So Dan Fax has asked, how do you find doing a series for 100 plus episodes motivating, along with all the editing and gameplay? So, great question. I just really love Football Manager, and I love being able to have a creative medium where I can just, talk about stuff, create a story. I'm not a YouTuber who cuts down my videos or edits them in super funny ways. Obviously, early on in the series, we did a few intros. We still do the odd little funny edit here and there, but nothing too major. I would love to edit my videos more, but I don't edit them a lot. So to answer that question, I don't edit a lot, and that's kind of intentional because as part of my day job, I do a lot of video editing anyway, and I feel like that would just contribute to more burnout. I also feel like my style is, I like to be a bit longer, and more rambly. I feel like that's just the way I do things. There's weird things that I say during my videos that probably most other YouTubers would just cut out because they're just a little bit awkward and a little bit funny. But at the end of the day, that's kind of who I am. There's some YouTubers who will cut out all the balls ups and stuff where things go wrong, and whilst if I cough overly loudly into my mic or something, I do cut it out. I'm rather unfiltered for better or for worst. And as I said, the reason I don't get burnt out doing my videos is, oh my word, Highland Molyneux's got to score that, by the way. The reason I don't get burnt out in terms of editing is because I just really, really enjoy it. Simply put, this is as fun for me making these videos as it is for you guys watching. I'm always a little bit mindful of burnout, as many of you will know. On the channel before, we've had periods where I'd go inactive for an extended period of time, sometimes, close to a year. And that's just down to burnout. I'm in a fortunate position where this isn't my main source of income. I have a day job, so if it gets to a point one day where I'm like, I'm not really enjoying doing videos at the moment, maybe I don't click with a save game or Football Manager, I am in a position just to step away from it. And I'm sure if you play Football Manager yourself, there's at least some point during the game's life cycle where you probably don't play for a month, or you don't play for a few weeks, you struggle to get into a save game, and I'm the same as you in that regard. The good news is I'm really enjoying playing the game at the moment. I'm not someone who looks on every Football Manager thinking it's a rubbish game. I feel like Football Manager generally goes from strength to strength. It's never perfect, but I feel like it's always a step in the right direction, and there's always enough change and enough little things that I find some enjoyment for it. As Manuel Alvarez scores and Highland gets another assist. Could he be like Dazell's reincarnation? I say that. Andre Dazell, by the way, he's in the museum, for those wondering. He's sat in the reserve team. He lays it off here, but to be fair, it's all on Alvarez. Might not be able to defend as a box-to-box midfielder, but his experience playing as a striker and a centre-attacking mid means he can be lethal from those kind of positions. But in terms of gameplay and, how I don't get burnt out playing Football Manager, the editing is one thing and doing videos is one thing. I just really love Football Manager. You know, I've played Football Manager. It's probably the game that I've played the most in my life. I love the stories that you can make up in your head. And I just get so much extra enjoyment from making videos on it and sharing it with you guys. Like, I really can't stress that enough. Like, for me, doing videos just adds to my enjoyment. You know, when I started doing YouTube, the biggest Football Manager channel had about 1,000 subscribers. I never started this with the thinking of, I'm going to make loads of money and be a super famous YouTuber. It was, videos are fun to make. People seem to like watching Football Manager. And as it turned out, I wasn't too bad at it, and people enjoyed watching, and I've stuck at it for the best part of 7 years at this point. That's a little bit annoying, though. What a goal by Guzman on the volley to score 3-2. If we lose this, that's going to be a bit irritating. We needed to win this one, although we're away from home, so it's not the be-all or end-all. And at least we're going down in Towler fashion. I'm going to go very attacking, though. So Stuart McFarland asked, on any other save you've done, have you ever had a regen as ridiculous as Matthew Lewis from the Lewis save? No, and I don't think you'll ever see a player like him ever again. He was nuts. They've scored again. That's annoying. The fact they've got Mayoral, that's definitely not how you pronounce his name, but playing for them is pretty insane. He must have stuck with them when they were in League One. Look how good he is. He played for them in League One and only got 13 goals. And of course, he's not actually played well this year, but he's got a goal against us. Set piece, didn't deal with it. Annoying free header. It is worth noting, actually, with the defence, we've got a new goalkeeper, a new right back, and a new left back. There's kind of a lot changing in the team at the moment, so there is going to be a bit of a gelling period as we kind of get used to one another. But that's not particularly good, and we've got to recover quickly. I think we'll throw in one extra match today. I was not originally going to do the game against Birmingham, but there's a few more questions to get through, and Birmingham are currently in 6th place, so it feels like a fairly important one. Although, I think we're going to go back to what I had previously labelled as my best 11. I will say, and I'm going to hold my hands up here, not been paying as much attention to the matches today as I normally would, because I'm kind of just talking and talking and talking, and really what's going on in the background is more of a backdrop. Although, I'll tell you what, Hyman is putting in some really good performances as a deep line playmaker in this system. Last year we didn't get a great deal from our deep line playmaker, and I think that was partially down to how we changed how we played. Trying to distribute the ball to the wings meant that the deep line playmaker didn't play as important a role in the team. Anyway, let's get some more questions, shall we? If I can find some more, because a lot of these are just really nice comments. People saying, Jack, take a break when you want to take a break. Obviously, a couple of days ago, there wasn't a video, and that feeds back into the whole thing about burnout. I will never force myself to make videos. If I'm not enjoying it, if I need a break, I will happily take that break. Someone asked, will I ever manage a Welsh team? I feel like we've covered that by answering the question, will I ever manage in Scotland? Although, I haven't ever managed in Wales like I have in Scotland. Granny Crippler asked, is this the first time I've been relegated from the Premier League in Football Manager? No, last year we did a bottom at Christmas challenge with Burnley. It's infamous for going horrifically wrong. It was a series where we managed Burnley 100% live. It was only 8 episodes long. Spoilers, we didn't get far off bottom at Christmas, is the simple answer to that one. I will use the excuse of I knew I was about to go on holiday for a week and I recorded that entire series in 2 days. Little bit behind the curtains there. But yeah, I played through that series in 2 days. There wasn't a great deal of thought that went into all the decision making. That's the best excuse that I can come up with. David Coonan has asked, do I think that Turnbull's anger will not getting a move will affect squad morale? Valid question, because he has been a little bit unhappy. You can see here he's got a few negatives, but actually on the whole he's quite kind of positive. He is actually willing to discuss, or at least he was. You can see here, willing to discuss a new contract with us. He does want stuff like to be treating the club as a stepping stone, which I don't really appreciate. But if we just look here, the only reason I'm not offering him a new contract right now is because he wants release clauses locked into his contract, and I just don't think he's worth selling at any price. Particularly with his current contract having, as you can see here, another 6 years on it. He signed a contract before we got promoted the first time, which was a 5-year deal with an optional extension of 3 years if we got promoted. He signed that deal. He's stuck on that deal. He can take a deal like Shvetsov did this summer. I'd happily offer him a contract on those kind of terms. But if it has a release clause in it, he ain't getting it. So, yeah, he can be unhappy with me for all he wants. He's going to have to get over it, unfortunately. Anyway, let's continue forward here, shall we? As you can see, Player of the Month went to Shvetsov. He's dedicated the award to us. Matasevic won Championship Young Player of the Month. Oh, you love to see that. And look at it. I want to now check this, but he's probably now played as a winger and played well there. No, he's playing centre-back still. I think actually he's not played any more since we last looked. But good development on the whole, which is great to see. And the fact he's playing at least a handful of games at centre-mid is exactly why we've loaned him out. You can see Darren Budd actually picked up Player of the Month with 5 goals in 5. This guy has a load of potential, but he's never fulfilled it. We've had him on different loan spells. He's never really shone. He got 5 goals this month. He got 1 goal in the entirety of last season playing for QPR. Maybe he could be a late bloomer, although it feels like a bit of a stretch at this point. Anyway, let's look for some more questions, shall we? Let's mash continue and we get through this. I hope I'm not missing anything important. In fact, we're already at the match. It's just flying by today. It's just flying by. Unfortunately, Achibar gashed his leg, I noticed, so he's going to be out. We'll bring in Stefanovic for him. Do I want to rotate things with any kind of players particularly tired? I don't think we need to worry about it. I think we're actually in an okay spot at the moment. Molyneux's not played very well out on the left, so you know what? I'm actually going to bring in Rodriguez, I think, and swap him with Shuttleworth. Stefanovic is a weird one, right? Because I want to give him more game time, but he hasn't really performed when we've given it him. And then he got sent off in the EFL Cup, and I'm a little bit salty about that. You can see so far this year the average rating is not great. A lot of appearances off the bench, to be fair to him. The kind of player who I'm sure I could give game time to and he would improve a ton, but at the same time I look at a player like Rodriguez and think, you know what, I kind of just need to keep playing you because you've just got the room to grow and you're not a world apart, really. Anyway, let's submit the team, and I'm going to go back to looking through the comment section. I did originally have the idea that I'd copy and paste a load of comments across, but because I wasn't sure how many I'd get to, I just thought on my second screen, get all the comments listed up and could kind of just go through them, I suppose. But anyway, we need to win here. We're at home against Birmingham. They are in 6th. Just as a little look, you can see here, we're currently in 5th, so a win here could be kind of big. It's incredibly close at the top of the league. There isn't really a team running away with it. Interestingly enough, Southampton, who were relegated with us, they've got 2 wins and 7 draws. We have just conceded here after 6 minutes. So let's proceed to panic. And meanwhile, I'm going to look through the comments. So actually, interesting one. Tyson King asked, would you ever consider quitting your job to do YouTube full time? If so, what milestone would it take to do that? Great question. Get asked it a lot. Always a little bit of an awkward one because, I have a job, my videos go out on the internet publicly, but I do have aspirations longer term for the channel. The reality is that content creation on YouTube is very, oh my word, what a goal, Shuttleworth. Really good goal. if you haven't been watching, I recommend tabbing into this one, but YouTube is just really, really in flux. If you don't know, obviously you might go, Jack, views must be really up at the moment with everyone stuck at home. They are, but the actual money that you make from YouTube is tanking harder than I've ever seen before. Like the way that YouTube works is it's completely out of your control. At the moment I have a stable job, it's great. Of course I do have a Patreon set up. If that by some miracle got to a point where it's kind of close to a salary that I could live off, that would probably be the landmark where I try and make something happen, but we are a long, long away from that now. It's tricky because I feel like if I'm going to do content creation full time, I would probably need to take a gamble. I'd have to stop working before I'm ready to stop working financially, and that's just something that feels a little bit silly to do, a little bit irresponsible. Unfortunately, in the sense, I don't have anyone who relies on me for money. I don't have a partner, I don't have children, at least that I'm aware of. I don't have pets either. It is just kind of me, so there is like a selfish element to it, but for example, in the last month on YouTube, the CPM, so the amount of money you get paid per 1,000 views, has more than halved. I can't go into exact numbers, but it was more than £7 at the start of March. We're now midway through April, and it's lower than £3. So for the same amount of views, you're getting less than half the amount you were previously, which I really can't stress it enough, and I've talked about it on Twitter, and I hate to bang the drum about it, and it's the kind of thing where I should mention it at the start of a video. If you enjoy watching content creators on YouTube, I understand that everyone's in a position, to support on Patreon, to sub on Twitch, whatever it is, whatever platform you're watching someone on. just consider disabling ad block if you do have it on, even if it's just for YouTube or just for certain creators who you like watching. I want to say about 40% of the people who watch my videos have ad block, which is a really high number. I understand why you'd have it. Adverts are annoying. At the same time, right now, people who create content from the internet more than ever, you're probably consuming more content than ever before, but they are getting paid less and less and less in the way of advertising. So just consider disabling your ad block. If there's people who you really enjoy watching, it's a really easy way to support people. It's such a small thing. I know that ads are annoying, and I know some people are really going to dislike this idea of me saying just disable ad block. But ultimately, there are people who their livelihood is YouTube and whatever. It's been more than halved in the last month. They're not on a government scheme where their income might be burst, and I'm not trying to draw comparisons to key workers or people who have been completely left out of their job. But as I'm sure many of you can understand, if one day your job just dropped its salary by 50 to 60%, you'd probably be a little bit concerned. Oh my word. Russell Shuttleworth with a goal of the season attempt, as I talk about a far too serious or a topic to talk about while we watch. Just tab out again. Russell Shuttleworth, he can't do it in the Premier League. He's a modern day Wesley Hoolahan, a god of the Championship. What a goal. What a goal. In off the crossbar. A little bit of a Yeboah-esque goal, dare I say. But yeah, just going back to what I was saying, basically, if you can, just disable ad block. If you already have ad block disabled, thank you. It's tough for everyone what's going on at the moment, and it's a little thing that you can do. And yeah, I'm never very good at words of this kind of thing. This is the kind of thing where I'd much rather talk about it with really concise points, and I realise I've just kind of gone off on a tangent. Additionally, obviously, ads, they don't pay that much. It's less than a penny per view, if you were ever curious. It's significantly less than a penny per view. If you do find yourself in a position where there's creators that you watch and you have a little bit of excess income, Patreon, just a one-off donation, not necessarily to me, but to whoever, it can really help them out. And for going full-time on YouTube and stuff, it's a massive risk, and I don't know if I'd ever feel willing doing it. It would have to be a leap of faith, I feel like. I would need to be in a position where I can drop everything and take a gamble on myself. And there is part of me that wonders, is there ever going to be a time where the stars align and I feel like it's right to do that? And would it be a risk that pays off? And the answer is I don't really know. I would love to be in a position where YouTube is my full-time job. I can stream a few times a week. I know loads of people ask me, Jack, will you ever stream on Twitch again? And the simple answer to that is, I would love to stream on Twitch. It's really, really exhausting, and until you've streamed and talked continuously for 5 hours, you can't really appreciate it. It seems really easy watching it, but funnily enough, being entertaining is hard, as is making goalkeeping saves, apparently. And on top of doing YouTube and stuff, it's just not viable. It would contribute to massive, massive burnout for me, and I like to have some downtime in my life. I like to have some time away playing other games, just chill out, like chilling out. And when you're streaming and playing a game, it's very different to just kind of playing the game. Right, it's 3-3 here. What a crazy match this has been. I don't feel like I've really acknowledged it, but Stevanovic, we're going to bring you on and see what you can do. And Turnbull, I'm going to take you off, and we're going to play Molyneux up front. A rare appearance for him up top, but we need another goal here, please, Shvetsov. You've only got one today. It's 3-3. We've already lost the last game. We need a win here. We've gone very attacking. There's a highlight in our half. Nobody panic. Please, well, maybe panic a little bit. I never really answered the question, but yeah, I have considered quitting my job to go full-time, but it's just a crazy, crazy risk, as I'm sure you guys can understand. Molyneux, you had a chance to be a hero there, and he just ballsed it up. Right. 2 or 3 minutes left of added time here. It's 3-3. Shuttleworth has done so much in this game for us. Can we reward his efforts? He whips it in! Oh, Shvetsov. I thought for a second he was going to nod it, and he was actually offside anyway, so it never would have counted. And with that, I think that's going to be all she wrote. It finishes 3-3, so 2 results here to end today's episode, but we didn't really get enough from them. I wish we'd been able to do more, but I mean, we have risen to 3rd with that result, so I guess it's not all bad, but Burnley are pulling away a little bit at the top of the table. But we have navigated ourselves through some tricky fixtures. But anyway, I'm going to wrap things up here. I'm really sorry on two accounts here. Firstly, if I didn't answer your question, but also because this video has been kind of different to my other episodes. I will be honest with you, I wasn't paying as much attention as I would like to what I was actually doing in game, which is a little bit odd. Also, with my videos, as you'll know, they don't get cut down. When you normally see someone do a Q&A, they're able to really easily cut stuff down to kind of make some cohesive sense. I feel like a lot of my answers here were kind of just ramblings that kind of went a little off tangent, but I hope were at least somewhat insightful. But anyway, yeah, let me know what you thought of this. Maybe we could do something again for 150. I feel like there's better ways of doing this format, to be honest, in hindsight. But as you all know with my series, the issue is I can't now just redo the video, even if I really wanted to, because it's happened. And, well, when we look at things, I mean, it could be better, it could be worse, right? Loads of goals, really entertaining matches. We find ourselves in third. We are still in contention for promotion. And maybe if I was focusing a little bit more, and Shvetsov could get a few more goals than 14 in 10, we'd be up there in the promotion spots. But anyway, thank you for watching. As I said, let me know if you've got any feedback on this video, stuff for the future. Apologies, it's not really like our normal uploads. I don't know how I feel about it. Maybe you guys loved it, maybe you hated it. Let me know. I feel like it was just a splurge of thoughts, in all honesty. So yeah, see you tomorrow. Things will be back to normal for episode 101. I hope to see you then. And yeah, it's me, Jack, and I will talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.